Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already. About half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you fall in that 50%, then subscribe. I had a comment on the last video that was proudly a member of the watches a ton of videos but isn't subscribed gang. What is wrong with you? Are you Satan? just subscribe to the channel. Also drop a like on this video. It is much appreciated. I do also quickly want to mention that in the last video I posted on here, I complained about the Bulls and got about 15 comments telling me to stop talking about the Bulls, even though I haven't in-depth had talked about the Bulls pretty much at fucking all in the past 2-3 weeks. This is my channel. I can talk about whatever the fuck I want. Someone was complaining about the quality of these videos when I deliberately made it clear that these videos are kind of the bottom of the barrel content where it's just me spitballing about the basketball games that I watched today and hot takes videos or whatever comes to mind. It's intentionally not that great. It's very low effort. That's what I advertise it to be. If you have a problem with that, you don't have to fucking watch, but don't complain about shit that I am telling you what it is going to be. So anyways, with that out of the way, let me talk about the games I watched today. And it was 3 really good games. One was a good game, but it was a blowout, so, not that, it won't be memorable. But I ended up watching, I did not watch the Bulls game, even though they beat the Heat, so good on them for that. But I watched Wizards versus Spurs, which was a very good game. Knicks versus Suns, which was a very good game. Grizzlies versus Nuggets, which was not that amazing, and then I watched Kings versus Mavericks, which was a surprisingly good game. So first, I actually set out to watch the Wizards and the Knicks today because they've been on a winning streak. The Knicks were about to win 10 in a row. The Wizards, I think, 9 in a row. But they lost both of their games. So I just outright cursed both of those teams. I tweeted about it, and a bunch of Wizards and Knicks fans were like, "You son of a bitch." I just cursed them from continuing their winning streak. As for this Knicks-Suns game, it was very good because of how it ended, but on the Knicks side of things, Julius Randle could not make his shots today. And Randle takes a lot of really difficult shots, so when he's having a bad shooting day, it looks real bad because it's just a bunch of shots that are not quality looks going to a player who's not making them today. RJ Barrett also wasn't the most efficient in the world. Really what stood out to me on the Knicks side of things today was while he only had 4 assists, all 4 of Randle's assists were impressive. There was one that was a wraparound pass to a perfectly timed Derrick Rose cut. A couple of kickouts to Reggie Bullock, who was really good in this game. And an underrated part of the New York Knicks success is he's the designated shooter on that team, and he's pretty good at it. And Derrick Rose specifically in this game was scoring was phenomenal. He finished 10 for 18. He, typical Derrick Rose stuff, drives, floaters, couple of mid-range pull-ups, which he's gotten very good at. He also, there's a weird thing with Derrick Rose that I wanted to point out, which is that he constantly does jump passes, which is incredibly frowned upon, but it always works for him. It's a very weird quirk with Derrick. I think he did a jump pass to Taj Gibson, and it was interesting. One thing on the Knicks side I want to talk about, and it may or may not be the title of this video. I was planning on titling it the Knicks win 10 in a row, or the Wizards are streaking, or something like that. And then they both lost. But I think I might title this about Obi Toppin, because Obi played 10 minutes in this game, and he had a couple of good plays. He had a pick and roll that he got. There was a dunk. I think it was an alley-oop. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. But he got 6 points, 3 for 5 from the field. 3-pointer that did not go in. But he played 10 minutes, and Obi was, what was he, the 7th, 8th pick in the draft, somewhere in that ballpark. By the Knicks, a power forward, and he was drafted by this team because the Knicks were not anticipating Julius Randle being much, definitely not being the franchise player that it's looking like he is this year. So I'm curious what the future holds for Obi Toppin. I don't know if this is an interesting enough topic to make the title, but to be a lottery pick and a big one, Knicks fans were so hyped that Obi Toppin was drafted by the Knicks. And then just to be relegated to a guy who 10 minutes, I feel like that's pretty high for him because he doesn't really get that much opportunity. Yeah, that's definitely rough. Taj Gibson gets 20 minutes a game, and the lottery pick you just took because you're now in a win now situation is not getting the most opportunity. And unfortunately for Obi, he's not much of a three-point shooter, which, like, maybe if he was, you could pair him with Randall, do Randall at small ball 5 from time to time, but Obi really is not much of a three-point shooter, so that doesn't work. And even if he was a decent one, that still would not be using Obi to his truest value. I think Obi can be a really good pick and roll player. Like, he's had comparisons to Amari Stoudemire. I think there is some validity to that, although it is worth mentioning that Amari Stoudemire was dominant pretty much as soon as he got in the league. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know with Obi Toppin. I think he might just have to be traded because even if he does break out, is he going to be as good as Julius Randle is right now? I don't think so. Julius is only like 26, so it's not like he's old. So that's a difficult thing going on in New York. Phoenix side of things, though, while Devin Booker finishes this game with 33 and he had 20 in the first half, Chris Paul ends up being the guy who walks away with the most attention on him because he just gave the Knicks a swift dicking at the end of this game. He had at least 7 points in like the last 3 minutes. He had a mid-range pull-up that was pretty typical. Then he had one where I think it was Randall. Somebody knocked the ball out of his hands, but then he just got this awkward fadeaway and he just chucked it up, and it's like at the end of the shot clock and it swished. It was like, God damn, that's such a ridiculous shot. And then to seal the deal on this game, he does a 3-pointer off of an ISO once again at the top of the key. An interesting thing about Chris Paul is he does fadeaways, like he brings the ball over and then fades into where the ball is, so he almost starts shooting before the fade, and it's not something I see other players do typically, and Chris is like the only guy, and it looks kind of awkward, but it always works. So it's an interesting move that I don't see people point out a lot because it's a weird way of shooting a pull-up or a fadeaway or whatever that he does. But the Suns won this one. The Suns actually had a decent deficit to the Knicks at a certain point, and they gradually made the comeback, and then Chris Paul just carried them in the clutch. Also, I want to mention Cameron Payne. He played really well. He actually had a couple of stops on Julius Randle, and it was like, I'm kind of frustrated with it, though, because it's like, why the fuck could you not do this when you were in Chicago? But anyways, let me move on to this Nuggets-Grizzlies game real quick because this was the least noteworthy one. I actually went into this game wanting to keep an eye on DeAnthony Melton because my editor and good friend Rudy St. Clair has been talking a lot about how Melton should be starting over Grayson Allen. This is not the best game, though, for me to really focus on Melton because he's typically one of the more subtle, like not as standoutish unless you're paying attention to little details players. This game, he wasn't really killing little detail things, but then he also went 1 for 9 from the field. So that's not ideal. John Morant, yet again, an amazing game, though he did not make any of his threes after shooting like 50% from 3 in the previous 30 days or so. My computer is at 10% battery. I swear to God, if it turns off, that's going to piss me off. Also, Jaren Jackson off of the bench. He's still in a minutes restriction. He did not play well in this one. I don't think that's the end of the world. On the Nuggets side of things, yet another 30-point game from Michael Porter Jr. That means he has 70 in the last 2 games, so that's pretty damn good. He finishes 12 for 19. A lot of this just comes off of Jokic passes. Also, Campazzo passes. He was a really good playmaker in this one. He got one that was a reverse dunk. He had a couple of threes at the top of the key that were set up for him. He had one where Jokic passed it to him, immediately set a screen, and then he dove to the basket for the layup. Like, I love Michael Porter Jr.'s pairing with Jokic in Denver. I've talked about it a million times, and I feel like I watch every Nuggets game at this point because I love watching MPJ and Jokic play basketball. But anyways, not too much to say on that one. They won the game rather easily because while John Morant had a very good game, nobody else is really doing anything. I did talk to Rudy briefly about Justice Winslow because I don't really understand his fit on this team, and he told me that he is not a fan. So I'm going to assume that most Grizzlies fans are in a similar ballpark because he's really not a scorer. He's an okay-ish playmaker, not the best finisher in the world, especially for what you think he could be. And then defensively, he's pretty good, but that's about it. So yeah, that's a brief talk on Justice Winslow. Wizards versus Spurs. This game went into overtime, and on the Spurs side of things, DeMar DeRozan had a crazy good game, as did DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray is one of the best rebounding guards in the league. He finished this game with 17 in 41 minutes, which is very fucking good. Also, Keldon Johnson, he had a really efficient scoring game. There was one like back-to-back possession where he hit a fadeaway mid-range baseline, and then immediately next possession, I think it was Alex Len. He jumped. It might have been Daniel Gafford. He jumped into whoever the center was, his body, and just finished through the contact because he is just very talented at absorbing contact and is still making the layup. So I just recently talked about Keldon in one of my videos on my main channel about future stars that are less talked about. 21 points in this one, 10 for 14. Pretty good fucking game. DeMar, actually, he had 10 assists in this one as well. A lot of the focus of him this season has been on the playmaking, but every time I watch a Spurs game, it seems like he's going off point-wise. On the Wizard side of things, Bradley Beal, as you'd expect, a lot of points, especially in overtime. He had 45, although in this one, it really felt like the majority of the of the games, like where the big things were happening, was going through Westbrook for better and for worse. Has a triple-double in this one, hit a couple of clutch shots, a mid-range pull-up late in the fourth quarter. DeMar matched it with a mid-range pull-up, and I'm not sure what happened to get the Wizards back in the game, and then DeMar missed a long fadeaway to win the game, and it went into overtime. I keep checking to make sure my MacBook does not slow down. But yeah, this was the end of the Wizard streak after doing very well. Russ did not shoot well in this game. Also, Alex Len, apparently, Funky Diabetic, he tweeted Alex Len career high 12 points, by the way. He finished with 17 in this one, but apparently 12 points was Alex Len's career high, which is pretty pathetic. But anyways, that's all I really had to say about this one. Also, I paid a little bit of attention to Daniel Gafford just because I heard that he's been a big part of them winning a lot lately. Did not have a good game in this one, but I'm not going to not believe that that's true. He did get a couple, he got 2 blocks, only saw one of them. It was very nice. But that is that game. And then the last one that I want to talk about, if I can remember the game, or wait, was that not it? No, I didn't talk about. Did I talk about Kings versus I didn't talk about Kings versus Mavs. Okay. This is the last game of the day. And the Kings did not have De'Aaron Fox. And yet they beat the Mavericks in this game. The reason for this is that in the first 7-8 minutes of this game, the Mavericks had 3 points. At the start of this game, Luka was not getting that many great looks, and consistently the Kings were leaving Tim Hardaway Jr. open for decent looks, and he kept finding Tim. Tim was not making the shots. He started the game like 2 for 9. He finished a little bit better than how that was initially. And it was kind of to get them back in the game. Trey Burke came in as a spark plug. He finished this one with 19 points, and they got the Mavericks back in this one. On the King side of things, Tyrese Halliburton's playmaking was a big thing. Also, Harrison Barnes seemed to have a vendetta. He only shot the ball 10 times, but he made almost every shot he took. He's 7 for 10. He had 1 3 in particular in that first quarter that was like, that was a ballsy shot, and he just dropped it like it was nothing. This on the side of things for the Mavericks, I actually wanted to pay attention to Nico Melli. Because in my last post-game recap, I talked about how I don't really understand why Nico Melli is a rotation player, because he doesn't do much outside of brick three-pointers. And a couple of Mavericks fans were like, I've seen him like be really good defensively. I'm like, really? Because I didn't see that in New Orleans. I tried to pay attention to that in this one. I'll be honest, didn't notice much. He didn't make mistakes, but he didn't do anything substantial defensively, which is not like being just solid is something. But that's really all I really noticed from him in that one. Other than that, Tim Hardaway Jr. finished with 19. Luka had a stretch where he was hitting he had hit 2 threes in a row, including a ridiculous step back. Though he finished 33% from 3 in this one, I do mention pretty much every time I talk about the Mavs that like Luka is a better 3-point shooter than I think a lot of people give him credit for ever since his rough start to the season. Like, he started the season sub 30%, and now he is like 36%. And I think if you cut out that stretch at the start of the year, he's near 40. Luka is a good 3-point shooter who sometimes takes threes. Like, he is an elite 3-point shooter. But the way he's been shooting lately is actually like bordering on elite. But yeah, just wanted to mention that as well. Trey Burke really was a big deal in this game. I don't know if I'm highlighting that quite enough. He finished 8 for 14, and him coming in and giving the Mavericks a bit of a spark got them in this one in the first place, but it was the Kings' solid play as that got them into this one. I should mention Rashawn Holmes as well. He just did the typical Rashawn Holmes thing. It's well known that I'm a fan of Rashawn Holmes. A lot of this also off of Tyrese Halliburton assists, and yeah, he just got a lot of easy opportunities off of like dump off passes, finding him at the around the free throw line where he makes his push shot like it's nothing. Yeah, that's that on the Kings side of things. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. This was definitely a good day of basketball. It is nice to see a lot of good games, because half of the time I do these and all the games suck, but I'm like, well, I still got to talk about it. I have no fucking idea what I'm going to title this video, but yeah, that's it. Bye-bye.